And hello and welcome to AstroPsych. My name is Ned Dahan and I am your host. This is actually a take two for the live stream. I don't live stream on AstroPsych a lot. It's just I was doing the take one and all of a sudden I got hit by a massive coughing fit, so got a tall drink of water here to keep all that stuff away. But you may have seen me around in some other places on YouTube, such as the True Crime channel Black Box Online Radio, as well as a guest on some other programs. Black Box Online Radio is mostly a true crime show, so here on AstroPsych, I like to talk about psychology, human behavior, and everything of the sort. Now, as far as today's episode is going to go, there was a YouTube channel that I repeat, used to follow, that is run by Michael Sartain, and he's a type of business coach, life coach, jack of all trades, master of none. And he recommended a particular book from Walter Mischel called The Marshmallow Test. And the Marshmallow Test is actually based on the Stanford Marshmallow Experiment. And to get right into the heart and soul of this issue, Walter Mischel conducted this experiment over several decades. And it started out by leaving children with a marshmallow, and the person running the experiment or facilitating the experiment would say, I'm giving you a marshmallow and I'm going to leave the room. And if you come back and you have not eaten the marshmallow, if you haven't eaten the marshmallow, I will give you a second marshmallow. And this is something that was done to look at the differences in how people delay gratification. And that's ultimately why Michael Sartain was recommending the book, talking about how delayed gratification can be very good. The concept of if you make the difficult choice now, it might mean that you are going to be more successful in the long run. If you take the easy route now, you might not be successful in the long run. Now, that's the way that he's presenting it. But what actually happens? All right, so you have this delayed gratification experiment. And, that first, even Walter Mischel said that their findings were absolutely identical between males and females. But over time, he actually found that females, girls, and women were more likely to delay the gratification, that they were going to wait, and that this could be a very big predictor of success in life. But there's a channel out there called Practical Psychology that was discussing these findings. They almost wanted to dispute the concept of how delayed gratification is what is driving people towards success. Like the people who can let the little reward go now to get the bigger reward later. Those are the people that are going to succeed, right? It makes perfect sense. However, there's a complicating variable, and that is that there are other influences on this experiment. There are other influences that are going to make people want to try and succeed, and one of which is that there is the concept of temptation. And what practical psychology was proposing is that it's not so much the delayed gratification, the delayed reward that creates the bigger experience for success. It's the temptation and avoiding it, because these stories were recorded and they were documented, and they have videotapes. And what they propose is that the kids who are looking away from the marshmallow, the kids that are covering their eyes when they're waiting, were actually the ones who are more likely to go on to be successful in life. And they provide the example of, if someone is a regular smoker or regular drinker, and they're just surrounded by people who smoke and drink regularly, it's more difficult for them to quit smoking or drinking. But if somebody is surrounded by sober people and living in a dry house, and none of them smoke, none of their coworkers smoke, then it's easier for them to quit smoking and quit drinking when the temptation is removed. It's quite similar to out of sight, out of mind. However, with something such as smoking and drinking, there are going to be physical addictions that are there, real physical addictions, and there are going to be cravings that people have. And I mean, my grandmother used to smoke, but she never smoked when I was alive. I never saw her smoke a cigarette once. She had quit for about 40 years. And I asked her once, was it hard to quit smoking? And she said, yes, even talking about it right now, and I haven't had a cigarette in 40 years, but even just talking about it makes me want one. She never really got away from the cravings 100%. However, if the temptation is removed, people are less likely to indulge in that. And this is the the biggest predictor of success. The people who are avoiding the temptation, and I think that that makes a little bit more sense than just delayed gratification. And you might be thinking about this marshmallow test as a type of experiment, because I was even wondering, are there going to be other biases? You leave kids alone in a room with marshmallows, and you tell them that, okay, if I'm by the time I've come back and you haven't eaten the marshmallow, I'll give you a second one. The thing that I was wondering firstly was, what if they don't like marshmallows? I mean, I did not like marshmallows growing up. I know it might sound weird for that's it might be a weird thing for kids not to like, but they were just too mushy or something like that. I get it that they're big and puffy and amazing to look at. I even liked smashing them around, but I never liked eating marshmallows. It took me a long time to eat s'mores around the campfire, and then eventually I can ingest one now without getting sick or something like that, but I don't hate them. But as a kid, I couldn't even eat a whole one without gagging. But another thing that Walter Michel wanted to really specify with the marshmallow test was that if you look at any of the images for the book, you'll see a big puffy marshmallow, and he didn't use those in the experiment. He used very small types of marshmallows, because this is another thing that I was wondering as well. Let's say, what if you didn't do the marshmallow test with a marshmallow? What if you did it with a sandwich, and you were giving like a sandwich or a cheeseburger to somebody, and you say, if I come back and you haven't eaten your sandwich or your cheeseburger, I'll give you a second one. Well, what if the person hasn't eaten for 2 days or something? They're just going to be like, I'm sorry, I couldn't wait. I haven't eaten for 2 days. They're going to be things like that, because that's almost a meal. Not by Seinfeld standards, but it's almost a meal. And they really wanted to use small marshmallows to show that this isn't something that's overly indulgent. Because, I mean, I was even kind of like wondering that maybe the kid's going to eat like a giant marshmallow and then they're just not going to want a second one because they've already had enough. Now, I should point out, though, I always like the small marshmallows that are found in like hot chocolate packets, as well as the ones that are with like Lucky Charms cereal. I've always been a fan of those. They're just completely different, actually. Told you I had that coughing fit during the first attempt of this live stream, so gonna try keep all of that away. Now, as far as the way that Walter Michel expands his research, he seems like somebody who was genuinely curious about how people think. And I think that this is so valuable for the following reasons. A lot of people get into psychology not because they're curious about how people think. Some people go into this profession because they want to learn how other people think to control them. Very controlling types, tyrannical types will go into psychology. They get off on controlling and mentally dominating people. And that's not something that a lot of people want to talk about or discuss, but that does indeed happen. And then there are other people out there who go into psychology because they want to understand themselves. Like they actually just want to have a greater mental understanding of their own personalities. And Cat Daddy Steve is here. Hello, Cat Daddy Steve. Welcome to Astro Psych 400. How you doing? Now, this is something that is one that I experienced personally. When I was at the university and I would talk to psychology majors, one of them had a very specific career that required a psychology degree. That's why she was doing it. But with everybody else, and I mean almost everybody else that I can think of, they were doing it for the reason that I just stated. They wanted to just understand why they were the way they were. Like it was for them. They wanted to go into psychology to have a bigger understanding of who they were. So with somebody like Walter Michel, I definitely do appreciate his curiosities. And as Neil deGrasse Tyson said, there is something that is remarkable and wonderful just about when people want to explore the secrets of the universe. Well, the same thing is true with the human brain and the human mind. It's amazing when people just want to explore these things. And some other findings from Walter Michel that are discussed in the marshmallow test are the hot systems and the cold systems. And did I say cold? It's cool. I always do this. I even did this during the first take. Hot and cool. And this is going to come across as misrepresentation, oversimplification. I just really hope that I don't miscategorize this, but I'm probably going to. The hot system is related to things like emotions and things like impulses, whereas the cool system is going to be related to things such as complex thinking, logical thinking, orderly thinking. And what Walter Mischel has brought forward is that you want to have either these things in balance, or you need both systems. You need the hot and the cool systems together to create happiness. But the problem that I have with this type of thinking, and anybody out there who is selling you secrets to happiness is overrated. It truly is. It truly is. And I know a lot of people don't want to admit that. And again, this all goes back to the tyrannical issues and the power issues and like the power control dynamics. But happiness is overrated because there's something out there called practical discontent. And practical discontent is so valuable because, say, for example, someone might be like, you seem stressed out about something. And it's like, I have a problem and I'm trying to fix the problem. And I can't do anything else until I have solved this problem. And that's the long and short of it. That is the end goal. That is just what needs to happen right now. I need to solve this problem. And the way that you do that is with practical discontent. And a lot of people, I know this is going to sound like some things that people won't want to hear, but there are individuals out there who want you to be happy, so you'll stop trying, so you'll stop resisting, so you'll just stay the way you are and you won't do anything else. Sometimes you might even want that for yourself. I've wanted that for myself at times when you reach a place where you want to be and then you don't want to grow or improve at all. And then this can also be done with sadness. People who are happy and people who are sad are not going to be in extremely vulnerable places. And with sadness, this can be done in psychological manipulation tactics that involve will breaking. So somebody has just been emotionally broken to the point where they're not going to resist anymore. Destroy their spirit, and then they won't try to overthrow you. I'm sure you can think of a few examples. But as far as the way that we approach these things, there is another YouTuber business coach out there named Owen Cook. And a lot of people don't like him because he talks about very emotional solutions now. He used to be a dating coach, but he's gotten away from that. And he did say something on one of his broadcasts that resonated with me, and that was that there's a difference between striving for comfort and striving for growth. When you're striving for comfort, it's more or less that whole thing about balancing your hot system and your cool system, and you're just trying to get into the state of happiness. Whereas when you're striving for growth, it's difficult and it doesn't always make you feel good. And you're doing these things not because you just want to have all those warm and fuzzy feelings that people would associate with the term happiness. You're doing this because you want more, like opening a business, for example. Extremely stressful experience. Writing a book. It's also a very big challenge, and it's not always going to make you happy. And striving for growth is amazing, though, because you're actually doing things. And more importantly, if you want to strive for comfort based on your own reasons, go for it. I would never discourage somebody from that. What if they actually achieve something in life where they are in a place where things are actually working out for them the way they want? What's wrong with that? Not everybody has to open a business or write a book if that's not your chosen pathway. And then there's also people out there who are just going to say, well, I want to keep working. I want to be the president of the United States. I want to be a CEO. They want to be a best-selling author. Try that too. Just don't hurt anyone along the way. If you're going to try to be a CEO or a high-ranking politician, you might be doing something illegal along your journey, but I hope not. If we can get as close to the ideal as possible. So I just kind of put a lot of that stuff about the hot system, cool system, balancing it to get happiness. I just take that stuff and kind of put it on the back burner. But in terms of the way that people go about their pathways for success, I was listening to a live stream on the Playing with Fire channel, and there was a participant named Not So Erudite. Her name is Kaya, I think, or Kyla, something like that, but her YouTube name is Not So Erudite, and she said that as a psychologist herself, she's a psychologist, men will often participate in hookup culture, like trying to sleep with multiple women, because they want to experience happiness. And that was one of the most ridiculous things that I have ever heard. Because, I mean, it's just simply not true. You don't do something like that, like participating in hookup culture, because you want to experience happiness. Many times it won't even make you happy. You do it to prove that you can. I mean, and this is quite difficult for a lot of women to even try and understand things from a man's perspective. And it's clear as day. It's clear as day. It's just sometimes people have certain limitations that they choose to ignore. Or sometimes there are certain boundaries that people choose to ignore. Sometimes there are uncomfortable truths that we have about the types of male female dynamics in life. Like, say, for example, girls like to say, guys only care about one thing. And then they also turn around and say, wait a second, I thought you just wanted to be friends. That is just the first one that comes to mind. So, how would something like the marshmallow test relate to finding partners and interacting with life? And, in terms of temptation, not a lot of people have access to complete regular, I should say, not a lot of men have complete access to finding regular partners. Women, absolutely. And this is some of the more difficult things to talk about because people just simply don't want to hear it. But women have almost unfiltered access to social engagement, whereas men have a lot more limitations. But in terms of improvements, I think even starting there, starting with this stuff from the marshmallow test and these case examples, avoiding the temptations of alcohol, cigarettes, illegal drugs, maybe even legalized marijuana. And one of the big reasons that people don't talk about too frequently, although that guy Owen Cook that I did mention brought this up once when he said that alcohol, cigarettes, and particularly alcohol and illegal drugs like cocaine can just bring out negative emotions. They can just bring out certain types of sadness in people that wouldn't normally be there without the drinking. And maybe that person needs therapy, maybe they don't. That's kind of something for a different time. I did know a coworker who was like that once when he just said that after a night of drinking, he's just crying. He's a man and he's openly talking about this and he didn't seem to have a problem with it. And he's saying it in a good way. I think he was doing this in somewhat of a either healthy release thing or he just liked to be the center of attention. He would talk about himself types, but he just said like by the end of a night, if he were to go out drinking, he would just be crying, and this would happen all the time. He was like the alcohol just made him sad. He might actually be dealing with some type of clinical depression issue, but as far as what you're dealing with temptations, well, at first it would start out perhaps nicely, and then the alcohol is very clearly making a bad situation into a worse situation. And somebody like that probably should just quit drinking altogether. So, in terms of how we interact in life, I think that delayed gratification perhaps is a good thing. Avoiding temptations would be another good thing. And ultimately, success is relative. Everybody's definitions of success are going to be different. And I do have some final concluding things to say. With the marshmallow test, they did also use Oreos, they used pretzel sticks, different things were used in this test, and that's so much better than marshmallows. But the marshmallow test has a nice ring to it, and really it's about not the overindulgence, but just looking at avoiding temptation and delayed gratification. Why not do both? Why not do both? All right, that'll be it for me now. Short stream today, but I just wanted to stop by on AstroPsych 400, and I'll see you guys next time, all right? And also see you on Black Box Online Radio, where I talk about the Zodiac Killer, Jack the Ripper, DB Cooper, and a bunch of other true crime cases and stories. You can hit the like button if you want here on AstroPsych and keep up with a bunch of things. I also recently did a series here called Persuasion Classics, when I was looking at different examples of famous interviews and looking at the persuasion tactics and how persuasively people would make their points. So lots of things to check out here on AstroPsych, and until next time.